You see, the reason you want to be better is the reason why you aren't. We aren't better because we want to be.
This is Alan Watts. He's one of my favorite writers, philosophers, and speakers of all time. Now, I'm slightly reappropriating this quote because the original quote was in the context of morality, where he was giving a lecture on the reason why you want to be better is the reason why you aren't, in terms of being good morally. And I hope that the big chief wouldn't mind too much, and maybe he'd even agree, because I think that the meaning and the importance of this quote is actually applicable to much more than just morality. Don't worry, we're not about to launch a philosophical debate on morality. Nothing would actually interest me less. I would, however, like to take this quote and the meaning behind it and see how it might be able to help your chess, and maybe even more than that. In this video, we're going to talk about the repercussions of being too attached to outcomes, results, goals, winning, losing, and how to develop a much more healthy relationship to your chess, be a more confident player, not be ridden with anxiety, and so I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that. Before we get started, I would really appreciate if you guys like, subscribe, leave your comments below. There will be much more content like this in the near future. All right, buckle up. The reason you want to be better is the reason why you are not. What does this mean? And how does this apply to your chess? Well, for many of us, this probably manifests in the desire to win, right? To succeed, to gain elo, to achieve a certain rating. And the thing is, that goal or that outcome becomes like a little carrot on a stick that's constantly dangling over your head, constantly luring your attention and having you not focused, distracted, right? Not in this moment, just thinking about what needs to be done right now. And it becomes sort of a vicious cycle where when you win, you're happy, and when you lose, you're unhappy. When you manage to reach that goal, that elo, whatever, then it's great. You're elated. And when you don't, or God forbid you lose rating, right? Or you go on a losing streak, well, then it's like terrible. This is what happens when people lose like 100 or 200 or more elo, sometimes in a single day, because you just get so fixated on getting those rating points back, on winning, that you just lose more and more and more. So what's really going on here? Because I think that we would all agree that goals are healthy and maybe even required to seriously improve at something that you're doing. Not only that, but the practice and the dedication to follow it up and make it happen. However, all of that needs to be dropped the second that you are actually engaging in the activity that requires your full attention. In this scenario, it's probably an over-the-board chess game, or maybe an online chess game, whatever it is. It's only those goals, those outcomes, they are only distractions from you. They're only going to be something that takes your attention away from this moment. Let's take an example. I want you to remember a time when maybe you were a kid and you had a quiz that you were preparing for. Maybe you are still a kid and you still face this same thing, and you're feeling anxious, you're feeling nervous, you're worried that you might fail, you're worried about the outcome of some kind, right? Do you know how big of a problem test anxiety is, right? This is a known phenomenon in psychology, specifically anxiety in regards to tests. Do you know how many med students have failed med school or the entrance exams, right? Simply because of this crippling anxiety, nothing to do with their actual aptitude or knowledge. Okay, so now let's look at chess. Do you know how many people refuse to play in competitive tournaments or competitive matches of any kind simply because they hate losing, or that they're afraid of losing? And that might be some of you watching right now. It's certainly me to some extent. There's days where I don't want to stream. There's days where I don't want to play chess at all because I'm too wrapped up in the thought of losing. Even worse, there are some people that literally stopped playing chess simply because of the fact that they hate losing, or it just makes them feel terrible. And don't get me wrong, I have complete and utter respect for people who choose their own like mental well-being over what is essentially a board game, right? But what's kind of a shame is that maybe it doesn't have to be like that. So just to reiterate, anything that takes your attention away from this very moment, from whatever it is you're doing, likely playing a game of chess, and even then, just moving the first piece, playing the first move, it's a distraction. It's not all that different from a computer, right? You're playing on your computer, and if you guys have ever had like the, Norton antivirus thing pop up, and it's just annoying as hell and distracting, but that can even be for other applications. If you're playing on your computer and you have too many applications or tasks running in the background, it's going to bog down and overload your CPU and your RAM. Now, of course, you could just go and get a more powerful processor and buy more RAM, but that's beside the point. The point is, those unnecessary tasks running in the background, right? Those thoughts, that attachment to the results, to the outcome is only going to overload your CPU. Your brain can only take so much, and you are at your best when you are fully immersed in the experience at present. And to fully immerse yourself in the experience, sometimes you need to know how to go and close out those programs, right? You need to know how to go to the task manager and close all those stupid programs out so that you can free up the CPU and run more efficiently. Those distracting pop-ups, right, or programs that are running in the background are more than often thoughts. And a lot of those thoughts, if you're playing a game of chess, is probably, I have to win, right? I want to win, I have to win in some shape or form in your mind. And if any of you guys have seen First Knight, Richard Gere plays Lancelot, King Arthur, Lancelot, all of that. And there's a scene where he's sparring, I think it's like the opening scene actually. He's sparring with someone. Of course, it's Lancelot, so his swordsman skills are insane. He disarms the guy, and the guy afterwards asks him how he's able to do that. And at the end of a series of questions, he says,
"And you have to not care whether you live or die."
Now, of course, that example is a little bit more extreme, but the idea is still the same thing, right? One way you could describe basically everything that I'm talking about right now is the idea of the flow state. Now, if you guys haven't heard of the flow state, it is defined as the mental state in which a person performing some activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of the activity. So key thing here being fully immersed and enjoying the process of whatever it is you're doing. Now, there are many ways to achieve this flow state, and we're not going to get into that in this video, nor am I specialized in that, but we are going to look at one way in which you might be able to get this. That is meditation and mindfulness. I'm going to once again introduce this concept of meditation and mindfulness with an example. You guys might know the movie and the book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, written by Dan Millman. The movie is based on the part fictional, part autobiographical book. To sum it up in my own words, Dan is basically a college student attending UC Berkeley, also a part of their gymnastics team. He's a top athlete, life is pretty good, right? He's in college, he's got everything he needs, and then boom, tragedy strikes. He breaks his leg, shatters his leg even. So you have loss, tragedy, and if you guys know anything about gymnastics, you would know that that could very well be like a death sentence for your career in gymnastics, especially at that competitive level. And he doesn't really know what to do anymore. He doesn't know how to cope because his entire relationship with gymnastics is contingent on success. And then he meets Socrates. Socrates in the movie, and maybe the book too, I can't really remember if I've read it, and if I have, it's been a long time, but is sort of this mysterious figure that works in a gas station. And to sum up his whole character, teaches him to throw out everything that he doesn't need in here that is keeping him from this moment. Now keep in mind, in this example, the sport is gymnastics, and the instrument or the machine that they're using is the body, right? In chess, although yes, keeping in physical shape is, so I hear, important for things like over-the-board tournaments, right, where you're sitting for hours on end, the main instrument in the machine is your own mind. So think about how much more important it could be your state of mind and that impact on your performance. For example, Levy from Gotham Chess. He is known for having struggled against grandmasters and even quit playing over-the-board competitive chess because of his crippling anxiety. Now he has the Road to GM series, and if you guys have been following that, you would see how thanks to, his coach, Archer Nixon's, and just his newfound confidence, he's less afraid of losing. I know he plays on Zen mode, right, where he can't tell who he's playing, and that's one way for him to just focus on the game. But that's a perfect example of this. So back to the Peaceful Warrior. In the movie, at least, it is sort of a Hollywood adaptation of living in the present moment and learning how to focus. So there's still a lot of emphasis on success, on him returning to competitive gymnastics and healing and recovering, to compete. But the point of this example with the Peaceful Warrior and Dan Millman's story and how it pertains to your chess, and kind of the point of the whole video, is that if you think that winning, whether it's an online chess game, an over-the-board game, or even a whole tournament, is the ultimate goal and the reason for your happiness or satisfaction, you will ultimately just be a prisoner bound by the outcome, whether you win or whether you lose, which is not all that different, I remind you, from a gambling addict who goes and hits the slot machines every day in hopes to win, get more money, and then the second they lose the money, well, then they're playing even more frantically to get that money back. Now, don't get me wrong. No one is expecting you to feel good after losing a game, right? But some of you might have watched masters such as John Bartholomew, Eric Rosen, Amon Hamilton. These are people, they're masters, but these are people who, when you watch them play, they lose and it's like, let's just say they're not known for chucking a mouse across the room and going into like full chest rage and chest tilt, right?
Why? How is he so smart?
They win, great. They lose. And it's like they just seem to handle the loss so well. So what if instead of placing all of our focus on winning, on losing, on achieving a certain elo, or whatever that may be, we shift our focus, we turn the equation around, and we make it so that the goal is just enjoying what you're doing, and the byproduct is potentially winning and feeling good about yourself. But, if you lose, and then you learn from it, and it's not that big of a deal. To be clear, just as I mentioned earlier, you're not expected to feel good after losing a chess game. Well, I'm also not discarding the importance of discipline, of practice, of just sheer elbow grease, blood and sweat that you pour into the sport to improve. That's what ultimately makes the achievement so satisfying when you reach some kind of goal at the end, is the work that you put into it, right? You have to have discipline. You have to put in the practice. But specifically with chess, you also need to be looking at how to improve your mistakes, and where you're making mistakes, you can literally just plateau and play tons of chess and not get any better. And that's not something that you'll see with like every other sport or hobby or whatever. But if you want to be someone who enjoys and loves what they do,
and you bring humor to the game, and I think that's very important.
Humor with my moves.
who can show up to a tournament without feeling crippling anxiety, and if anything, a feeling of excitement and of confidence, then this is critical. Sure, plenty of people are confident because they know that they're good. They might even be the best, and they know that. But what happens when you're no longer the best? What happens when maybe you're no longer all that good, or you get injured if it's like a physical sport, right? What happens to your confidence and your sense of identity? True confidence is not reliant on anything. And in a sense, it's not even real confidence, because a lot of people kind of mistake confidence with, it's associated with like a sense of arrogance. But really, true confidence is just not being worried, being calm, being relaxed. So without further ado, what is meditation? What is mindfulness? And how can you use it to improve your chess, reduce anxiety, and all that good stuff? Basically, and I'll just give my own definition of meditation, meditation is any technique that is used to quiet the mind. Another way to think about it is just doing nothing. Because if you look at your daily life and all of our lives, what are we constantly doing? Something. We're always doing something, right? Do you know how hard it is to just sit down and do nothing? It's way harder than you might think. And just to give a little caveat here, because we are kind of opening the doors to a massive, vast realm of different, practices, spiritual practices, different techniques. A lot of people are convinced their way is the right way, or that there's a right way to meditate. That is absolute BS. Let me tell you right now, there is no one size fits all. It is whatever works for you. And I even avoid sometimes using the word meditation because it has so much baggage and so many connotations with it. The people sometimes have this image of meditating that you need to be sitting down, in a certain way. You have to have your back straight, or your chin like this, or you have to close your eyes, you open your eyes, you have to count, whatever. The best example that I give is just look at your cat. Your cat is not anything but in this moment, right? They're just constantly, it's like every little sound, there's no way that there's nothing they're doing. They're not practicing to be like that. They're just like in the moment, if nothing else. And all of those images and, basically thoughts that pop up when you think of meditation are also distractions. And when we're talking about meditation, the goal is basically, let's say, to calm your mind. What's difficult is that it's a bit of a paradox. And to use Alan Watts once again, sorry guys, get used to it. That would be like trying to smooth ripples in water with a flat iron. Water becomes clear and still only when left alone. So there are tons of different kinds of meditation. There's transcendental meditation, there's Vipassana, there's Zazen, there's so many different kinds of meditation. All of them are great, all of them do different things. And, they all have different flavors. For the sake of simplicity, whether you guys have meditated before, whether you're familiar with this or not, what I'm going to do is just give you guys a couple techniques that I use based on the circumstances. The first technique that I sometimes use is diaphragmatic breathing, or just belly breathing. And basically what you're doing is just breathing in through your stomach, in and out through your stomach. And I typically focus on trying to keep my chest still. So all the air, it's coming in, but you're really just pushing it out with your stomach and then pushing it back in with your stomach. I find that it keeps my mind kind of concentrated enough on just the breathing without having to count or, anything else like that. And it generally, brings about a pretty calm, relaxing feeling. And so that's the first technique. And you can do it as long as you'd like. Honestly, if you're just getting started, start off slow, right? You don't go to the gym and, do your max bench press or deadlift or whatever it is and like break your body. Start off slow. You're only going to discourage yourself if you do it too much, too hard, too fast. Do 3 minutes, do 5 minutes, whatever feels right for you. You can always do a little bit more the next day. And then the second technique is basically you're going to use your sense perceptions. Very often, for most of us in our daily lives, we are entirely just consumed by our thoughts. We're completely ignoring all of the other senses, such as smelling, touch, sight, all those other different senses that are kind of the colors that make up your experience. I mean, these are things that are just completely ignored by most people. And so you can just pick one of them. Sometimes you can do several, but just pick one of them, like hearing, right? So sometimes I'll sit down, although you can also do this standing up, walking around, whatever, and just focus on the sounds that are happening around you. And that's it. Just really focus on the sounds and listen, right? Don't just hear the sounds, really try to listen so it's like an active process. And if you're looking at something, what you can do is like, here, I'll just take this pen. You can grab an object. And I actually used to do this with just a pen, right? You ordinarily, right, when we take an object, we look at it, we go, yeah, it's a pen. Well, you're not looking at it. What's happening when you're doing that is you're taking an object and you're immediately putting it into a category. So in other words, you're entirely in your thoughts in the process of labeling, categorization. You're not really looking at the object. The goal is just to simply look at it. Notice the different shapes, the different contours, the colors. Like this is a little wooden looking thing, I guess, with a weird, ballpoint. I don't know what this is at the top, but anyways, and just look at the different patterns of the wood and, the what it feels like when you're grabbing it. Just look at it. And you might get the sensation of feel like you're a child again. Like maybe you were playing at your school or outside in your backyard and just like playing with rocks or something. This might kind of feel like, wow, I haven't experienced this in a long time, like since I was a little child. That's a good sign. That means you're doing something right. And just do that every now and then. So maybe you're going to a tournament or some kind of, over the board game. Just do that beforehand. Just take a second. You can either breathe or just pick up like a pen or some kind of object. Just look at it. Just look at it and notice what is happening here right now in the present moment. And this can be a great way to just calm your nerves, to recenter your focus on the here and now, so that hopefully by the time you sit down and start playing, you're not so worried about, winning, losing, what's going to happen, right? Just focus on. You could, even if you wanted to, right, when you're playing, you could grab like, and a lot of people have that sort of tick where they grab a chess piece and they're like juggling it around as they're playing. You can do that. Like if that helps you, grab one and just notice how it feels. Notice how it feels, notice the sensations, so that you're not too wrapped up in all of the nervous, thinking. You need that thinking, you need your CPU, let's say, to calculate. You need that to be utterly and totally focused on the chess, right? But everything else, we want that all those other, Norton antivirus, all those pop-ups and those unnecessary tasks running in the background, we want those out of there. And this is a way to just sort of quiet that down so that you can concentrate on what you're doing in the moment. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I will be doing another video. We're really looking more into meditation. There's lots of other videos that I plan on doing. So let me know what you like. Let me know if you were able to try this and how it worked out for you. And if you had any questions or if something doesn't make sense or, whatever, just leave your thoughts. I appreciate it. If you guys do like this, please leave a like, subscribe, put a comment below. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you in the next video.